Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the webinar. We are so excited to have you all here. Hopefully you can all see and hear everything all right. I am here in what we'll call our Bramasol studio, but I am here at our Bramasol headquarters, and I'm excited to be here to do this webinar. And what I'm more excited about is I have Dave Fellers with me. So Dave, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hello, John, and thanks for including me in the webinar show. My name is Dave Fellers, CEO of Bramasol. Been here supporting John behind the scenes for many years, and glad to be on here to talk to all of you about our topics today.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very excited because Dave and I did this recently, so we're very excited. We've kind of polished it a little bit, and we're excited to share our insights with you. So, Dave, in this webinar, we're going to discuss a few things. Number one, we're going to talk about potential AI and Gen AI seem to be all the topic, all the rage in our recent meetings, both at SAP, also with Insider, right?
Absolutely, big topic.
Yeah. We'll highlight some of the key considerations for creating a foundation for AI and Gen AI. This is a big topic, but there are a lot of foundational elements I think that need to be in place before you can really take advantage of it. And then we'll try and share a few customer insight conversations that we've had recently. Remind all of you that you can contact us anyway, certainly via email, but you can contact us using bramasol.com. You can go to our LinkedIn page, learn more about what we're doing. We have Facebook, Apple, iTunes, and then YouTube. We have recently updated our YouTube page. We have a whole raft of different content that's available to all of you, and you can sort it by different areas. So we've made it a little bit easier to find the subject matter that you want. So I encourage you to get out there. There's a lot of different videos, over 200 of them on different subjects. So. All right. So that's our introduction, Dave. For the audience here, we find often that people don't always know who Bramasol is. We make an assumption because they get on these webinars, but the reality is we have new people here. So maybe you can share a little bit about, so who is Bramasol?
Sure, thank you, John. Many of you may know about us. Bramasol's been around for 28 years, dedicated and focused on SAP and SAP only. Helping represent the software SAP sells, as well as doing implementations for actually 20 years this year. Hasso Plattner, one of the founders of SAP, has been our owner, so celebrating 20 years with him. Now, Bramasol ourselves, systems integrator, very focused on S/4HANA, and in particular, Office of the CFO and finance line of business applications, including the quote to cash, which would include products like BRIM and Hybris, and now some of the public cloud variations in the naming, as well as big experts in core finance and reporting areas such as revenue recognition, lease accounting, treasury, things like that. So we call it the digital solutions economy. That's the circle on the right. It's starting from e-commerce and interactions with customers all the way around. Our focus is helping companies fulfill and meet those challenges of the digital economy. We have, whether it's, yeah, exactly. And we know everybody's trying to get into subscription and consumption and other models along those lines, ratable solutions, and SAP has solutions that help us do that. Bramasol's key to success is being very hyper-focused on this, collaborating deeply and innovating with SAP. We've been doing this for quite a while, and I like to say that we were doing these things yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So our people, this is what we do for a living. We've got some great clients that have been able to take advantage of our work that are reflected on the bottom, and many more. So excited to be able to work with anyone that can benefit from the help we give.
Absolutely. That's a great summary. And I know, you and I actually spent the last 2 days, speaking of co-innovation partners, spending time with everybody from the head of product development all the way down to the folks who manage some of these specific products. So, we continue that tradition of co-innovation, if you will.
Absolutely.
Speaking of the digital solutions economy, why do we talk about this? We heard it being referred to as digital business today also. What we find is more and more as we talk to companies at Insider and various events, more companies are moving in this direction, and you'd be surprised at the ones who are taking on these subscription models, whether they're subscriptions, entitlement models, usage and consumption. I'm always amazed, Dave, at some of the ones. I mean, you look on this list, whoever thought of a car as a subscription, right? We know leasing, but Mazda and others are starting to think about not just the renting the car, but aspects of the entertainment systems and the software that drives. I mean, a Tesla is basically a software machine, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, subscription-based economy is no longer just for software or Netflix. It's everybody's trying to figure out how they can provide their services, and that's because consumers are asking for it that way.
Absolutely. And businesses like our friends at the top, NVIDIA, are finding different ways to position their solutions. They're not just doing selling a chip or selling a board. They're really selling a platform for development. So that's been the awesome fun of this. So let's dive into it. You and I had a chance. We did do a talk last week at Insider. It was well received. We had a pretty full audience there. We had one of the bigger ones that we saw. And we talked about AI. We thought we would bring a lot of people talking about AI, but we wanted to bring a practical nature or a thoughtful nature to it. And let's kind of broaden the stage. We were sharing an example previously of a company that was using AI to do reconciliations, but this is broadening it. And what I think of is, you and I talked about this, the vision of an autonomous vehicle, right? Imagine getting into a car and there's no steering wheel. We already have an interesting opportunity with Waymo where there's no driver, but you can see down here, there's no driver, there's no anything. It's just a vehicle that you sit in and make things happen. It's an interesting experience, but there's a lot that's got to happen. What kinds of infrastructure things need to happen to make that a reality?
Yeah, so of course there's in a situation like this, there's the vehicle and the software and the sensors and things like that go in the vehicle, but also we've got to think about some of the common sense things we always have to think about. What's the quality of the roads and the markings and the potholes and all of that, and closures of bridges or turnoffs, all of that has to be addressed as well in real time, in super real time, because you're in a vehicle that's going to be moving at the speed limit theoretically. So a lot to address there. And if you think about that, we give you that example as a teaser, but if you get into, well, I'm in a business with quote to cash and finance and rev rec systems, there's something to translate of. We have to be ready as well on the business side.
Absolutely, and we highlight these ideas. Think of the vehicle to infrastructure. How is that vehicle communicating with buildings or traffic lights or parking zones or other items that might be on the road? And we think of the infrastructure, and we'll draw a parallel to that as infrastructure. Our foundations, your foundations. Vehicle to vehicle is kind of really interesting. You had a great analogy. It's how am I communicating with my other systems, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you would expect the evolution of these things to result in better and better communication to help fine tune the flow of information and of AI decision making.
And then of course vehicles. We know, we drew this interesting idea. We get into the car in the future and we said, hey, take me to grandma's house, right? But that requires the vehicle to communicate with itself, its map, create a map, and then you say, well, while I'm on the way, I'm going to pass by Aunt Sarah's house. I want to pick up some things. Call Aunt Sarah. So there's that inside vehicle. So why is that important, and how does that relate to what we're talking about? We're going to give you kind of 3 different thought processes or examples of why that's important and why this foundational idea makes sense. The first one is the idea of what we call, and I've been calling, almost a decade now, insight to action. And how does AI relate to that? And if you use the diagram on the right, there's this idea of you can use AI for just decision making. How do I reconcile anomalies or detections? How can I do credit scores? On the far right, we have this idea of generative AI. Everybody wants it to write my next doctoral thesis, or how do I solve the world's hunger problems using AI? And there's lots of great tools. And of course, there's an intersection in there. And I think we'll start with the idea of just decision making and looking backwards. So imagine for a moment that you have a integrated infrastructure in place, and you are able to look across your entire order to cash process. You could, in theory, you could get online with your AI, your generative AI, and you can say, hey, show me a comparison of my product breakdowns. I want to compare the sales view with the finance view, and what's the impact of rev rec? You know, we heard one of our customers say, hey, I'm a product manager, and I know that I had sales of $1 million, but my P&L only shows 700,000. Why? Right? So there's a lot that AI can show you. It reaches in and looks at your revenue recognition, your order to cash, and does some comparisons. Maybe you have an audit coming up, and you ask AI, hey, you know, AI, can you show me any potential insights on where I might have some challenges? You know, where am I vulnerable? What might you know, one of the big five come in or big four come in and tell me, oh, I have some gaps here. Or proactively, and this is something interesting you and I talked about, standalone selling price. You know, crucial to the revenue recognition process and allocation. And what it is, you know, as we may know, is it's the idea of creating a standalone that says, well, what would I normally sell this for? The reality is, what did I sell it for with all of my discounts, and how does that affect my allocations? But imagine I could use that today, and we're working with some of our tools to say, well, show me, you know, standalone selling price over time, right? And what were the impacts by geography, where I have some that are more discounts and less? And certainly that requires some infrastructure, right? It would require an integrated order to cash. Now, we could certainly argue to RevRec, and we need to understand, what are the defined prices? Do we have consistent data definitions? How do I have clean processes with minimal manual intervention, and around specifically SSP? You'd want to have maybe a single repository, such as the SAP Universal Journal. And then a great tool for this, of course, is if you really need details, you know, FICA, contract accounting. And this is really one that's back, I won't say backward looking, but it really looks real time today, helps you draw insights and says, oh, what do I need to do about that?
This is kind of that baseline AI with what you have, and you'll hear that the quality of your data and the access to the data in this model is critical. This is kind of where we are, a lot of us in the initial stages of using and taking advantage of AI tools.
Yep. And it's something that can be done relatively quickly. It's looking backwards. You have a really great one, and I'll ask you to talk a little bit about a future-looking scenario. So we've looked backwards and said, how do I do a lot of this? And there are tools, but you know, Dave, you have a scenario. What about financial planning and modeling?
So absolutely. So from a baseline, then we say, well, what's the evolution of AI and in the use cases? And it moves from having all of your clean, nice data and a clean, nice integrated system to saying, well, maybe it's a little more dispersed, and maybe I need access to data because I have questions that go beyond the normal, because I want to get some assessment of the future, not just see what the past and analyze different, dissect and analyze the past so much. And when you start looking at it that way, through AI tools, you can pull in information from governmental and regulatory sources,
right.
industry sources, just general publicly available. And the great thing with AI is you don't, you know, in traditional coding and all, you got to name everything. I want A, I want B. But with AI, you can say, hey, I want lots of marketing information. Go find it for me. And as we know, because of the large learning models, it's gathering and getting educated on all sorts of things. So you have the ability for far more information, and therefore far more results, which are driven again. And what makes this one special is you need the expertise, though, to take advantage of it. So you know, if you're an FP&A organization in your company, you need to be you have to have the mindset of what you're trying to accomplish and know the right kinds of questions. Two different people asking different questions of the same model may get different results.
Right.
So your knowledge and insight in how to leverage and take advantage of an AI tool, and that's what makes this kind of modeling and iterative process, very powerful in this case, to pull in a lot of different kinds of information that can really give you insights you've never had before about possible future results, possible issues. We hear about, hey, how do you get more news on the supply chain? Well, what if you're pulling in a lot of information on your supply chain? You're not aware of it all, but you're getting information that says, hey, you're going to have this kind of problem at this kind of point, in these kind of areas, and these kind of cost impacts. Yep. So very much an issue that this can help drive. And something that we get beyond the core, it's that ability. So AI brings a couple of different things.
Right.
It's pulling in a lot of information and making it clean and understandable. There's an analogy some speakers use about called the meatball scenario.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And the more you got one meatball or a couple like John and I here,
a couple of meatballs here in the room. That's right. Yeah.
We can just talk to each other back and forth. But you start adding more and more people, as you know, in any meeting, it gets more and more complex, harder to synthesize what you're hearing, and that's the power of AI. The other thing that as you get into more advanced models like this, and the power of AI is the concept of natural language processing. Really what makes AI different, because in some ways, back office and mainframe-based AI has been in existence for several decades.
That's true. Yeah.
What makes it powerful today is if we're not doing it ourselves, maybe our employees, our colleagues are already, our kids at home, whatever, we're already using AI because we've got tools now. We can just log into off our phone or laptop. And it's that ability to communicate in a written word, just the native language, English, maybe in our case, other native languages. Also, speaking is available, already and increasing. And now you don't. So you go back to you're in your revenue recognition, you're in the selling side of things, order to cash. You don't want to wait on just a programmer. All this stuff we've been talking about, writing sophisticated code, figuring out every if then else statement, but now you're just talking and you're asking for information and you're taking information. Hey, can you further dissect that? Well, that's a very different than going to an Excel spreadsheet and writing your macro.
That's right.
Power is incredible.
It is. And and I liked last night we were talking about this, and you great analogy of, or a point of, for years, I had the privilege of working at both AT&T and IBM, and we had some tremendous tools and models even back in the day, and quite frankly, there are tools being used today that Amazon and UPS do, transportation algorithms, right? They have these massive models in the background. Economics has had these massive models in the background. And we even, hinted that, we always see those TV movies about, we see chatter on the internet. I doubt some guy or gal is sitting there in a room just looking at chatter on the internet. You can imagine that the government's had tools like that for years. You talked about now they become through natural language processing, and now it's accessible, right?
Absolutely, and that's why it's taking off, and it is a big topic because it's only going to become a bigger topic with every passing day.
It does, and I think your point about the domain knowledge and the insights and the access to that are so important. So we've talked about a scenario. I gave insights to action. We talked looking backwards. Here we're looking somewhat forwards, but what about models for the amazing future, right? We just talked about getting into my car that I go down to my garage. I say, take me to Dave's house, and it goes off and does its thing. What's the vision of that? And we talked about a vision of that for the future. And one of the futures is, of course, we know that lots of people are investing in AI, but with what respect and what outcome? Imagine a future where you're a product manager or a director, and you say, I've been looking at the trends in the marketplace, but can you give me an assessment AI of what are the trends given our recent performances, as well as insight from future revenues? So revenue recognition, we're looking forward using an integrated tool that says, here's your waterfall report for the future. What would be the best bundle of services that I could offer my customers? And how might I best go to market with that bundle? Is it by region, by product set, by vertical? And you might come to me and say, John, as my CIO, my CTO, what's the optimal infrastructure, and how do I make a process to get this to happen? So AI goes in, looks at your rev rec, goes and looks at your order to cash, looks at take rates, looks at all of those different aspects and says, you know, Dave, given the increase in the number of customers looking for these three combinations of products, you know, a widget with a service, and by the way, a longer term subscription that's built on some milestones, we think your best combination is ABC. Put these together. Past performance has shown that a regional approach, and leading with Luxembourg, because it's in the EU, it's a small country with small exposure, is probably your best deployment option. And then, you know, the CIO, I might come back and say, well, I've got SAP tools. You know, we mentioned 2 tools, but there's lots of tools here that you can use, and I can analyze the process proactively, look at my multiple processes and say, oh, well, here's the optimal process to enable the customer to order it, configure it. We will fulfill it using supply chain tools. Here's how we're going to rev rec it and do all of the cash management. And here's how that's all going to be done. I have an integrated solution with BRIM, SAP Finance, and RAR. And by the way, because I have this, I can give you a 3-month rollout. Wouldn't that be awesome?
That would be awesome. And that is a real future, the acceleration of business modeling and of the infrastructure build to make it happen is already in play.
Yeah. So, you know, we've talked about 3 scenarios. So what have we covered? We've talked about the subscription economy, right? And how many businesses are growing.
There's no end in sight to this, by the
Yeah.
way. This is just going to continue to take off.
Yeah, we talked a lot about that. I mean, you know, maybe the sharks as a service, right? But there is sports as I think of sports as a service. Is there sports as a service? Sure, I can go log on and with Warner Brothers Discovery and watch any show I want at any time. So it's kind of an interesting twist to that. We talked a bit about autonomous cars and how they are an interesting benchmark, if you will, or a thought process. Everybody gets what a car is, right?
Right. It's a good way to relate to what's happening here.
Yeah. And then we covered 3 scenarios. We're going to give you a quick, you know, here's a way to artificial intelligence. Everybody likes a quick tip. We'll just give you an idea. We have a client that is looking for a way. It's order to cash to compliance. They need a way to look at how do I create an order? I have detailed orders. I pay for them via credit card, and that credit card then puts registers an amount in my bank account. And how would I integrate all of that together, and how might I look at the details? Because I know what I'm seeing in my bank account doesn't necessarily match what I thought I would see. So you can use a tool like SAP Digital Payments. The digital payments would understand where all of those credit card receipts are. Match that to what you've seen come in from maybe your SAP order to cash solution that details all of what you sold that day. You match those 2 together, you can see which ones settled out and which ones didn't. And all of a sudden, because I use SAP's multi-bank connectivity, for example, I have a quick view into my settlements process. And, you know, we've estimated that you could set a system up, or you could set up a system to provide that detailed view in a matter of, you know, months and weeks, not months and years like it used to be. So, you know, quick tip, take a look at tools like digital payments, look at tools like FICA. They'll provide a lot of help in setting a foundation.
And all available on the public cloud.
All available on the public cloud, that is right, which is great because whether you decide to move in a public cloud journey, you're partway there on your S/4HANA journey, here's a quick way for you to jump off, as it were. So we did cover 3 scenarios. Insight to action, dynamic financial modeling, so kind of a look back, a look forward, and then this idea of the future. And they were really 3 artificial intelligence scenarios, right?
Mm-hmm. Good ones.
Yep. So key takeaways. We can go through here, just touch on them. I think takeaway number 1 for me is to think about quick wins. You don't have to re-engineer the future. You don't have to do everything all at once. You know, take an example of, you know, little steps. Waymo is a step in this direction of a completely autonomous vehicle that does what it is. You have to put things in the beginning, but Waymo is an example of that step in the car. Here we can use, a quick win, as we've talked about, that idea of matching digital payments and FICA, right?
Yeah, absolutely. With AI tools today, you already can do practical things like some assessment of your accounting. There
Yeah.
you feed the information and you can already get some insights. I guess another takeaway is AI is going to be pervasive. It's going to be
Go
in
ahead.
everything
Yep.
we do.
Yep.
And so you can't, honestly, I know it's the big topic, everybody's going to get tired of it to some degree, but this one's not going to go away for a while because it has so many use cases that are evolving, and it's going to touch everything we do. And it's going to change a lot of things we do and maybe eliminate some things we do, and it's going to introduce more new areas. So as every technology revolution does.
Yeah, and you pointed out what we've seen is so many of these industrial revolutions. Now they're calling it Industrial Revolution 4.0 or 5.0, whatever the number we're on is. But everybody was concerned during the first industrial revolution. The machines were taking away jobs, and what we found was somebody's got to make the machines, support the machines, maintain them, do all of that stuff, and we found that there was even more jobs, and then they allowed people to do more. This is an example of probably AI is not something to be afraid of. It's an opportunity to see the future and embrace something that can do that. I think one of the aspects that people need to talk about is it's not just about the data. We know that artificial intelligence will and does today. It has some limits on the data it can do. It hallucinates, but we can train it. But it's just as important to understand the process, right, Dave?
Absolutely. And we talk about a little later too, that domain expertise, the process expertise is critical because something we talked about earlier, how you use AI tools, how you interact with it, what you feed it, what you ask of it, gives you different results. Different people trying to do similar things, getting very different results. So you have to have that knowledge. I used the analogy in our last session in Insider. You wouldn't want an auto mechanic to do your financial accounting analysis, just like the accountant probably shouldn't be fixing your engine.
That's right.
You need to have the right people who are focused and dedicated with the skill set to make the maximum advantage out of this.
Yeah, and that was a point. Actually, I was watching a thing the other night, and Jay Leno made the same interesting. I wouldn't want my mechanic who fixes my transmission to work on my heart. That's just not the way. So, but it's the process. The data is going to return interesting information, but you as an expert might look at that process and try to understand, not just because processes are not just systems, they're people.
Absolutely.
I think SAP Order to Cash. I think SAP Order to Cash and RevRec are powerful tools to create this foundation. There are some great opportunities today to focus in. We've mentioned a few of them that we thought of. In the revenue recognition space, SSP. You and I heard from a couple of people. Cash application is a great space for that. Artificial intelligence, and SAP has some tools already, but if you extend what I was talking about in terms of looking at the settlements, now all of a sudden AI can say, well, look at what I've seen from the beginning, which ones often don't settle out, so that I know how to apply Cash App to my bill or to my statements. And Cash App is a great example of a place, right?
Absolutely. And as the user interacting with the AI tool set, trying to drive greater validation or reconciliation of these kind of processes, instead of, again, waiting on another software product or waiting on a programmer, things like that. That's the power and magic of this, is what was once just, in our world of SAP, ABAP code in the old days, evolved to machine learning, but now we have AI with human interface, basically, verbal and written interface.
I think I think the domain expertise is absolutely crucial. You talked a lot about that, so I'll let you kind of lead that one.
Yeah, no, it's the key. This is like a powerful engine that you need to have the right basis for using. And that the power of that is it doesn't diminish. You mentioned earlier, the concern anytime there's a technology change, what does it do to certain kinds of jobs or for people's lives. But deep expertise is more critical than ever for those of us, in businesses, and those of us like SAP and the ecosystem partners like Bramasol being experts as well to help bring that to customers. The AI tools, as they look and as they're going to evolve for now, they can't do it themselves. They need to be, they need some direction and guidance of what we're looking for and how we achieve that. So whether it's supply chain, finance, just strategy, all the different tools, ways in which we might interact, you've got to have a foundation of expertise.
Yeah, and there are certainly AI tools that are out there today. We've talked about, some of the ones that SAP has. There are other tools out there that allow you to optimize processes, right? There might be bottlenecks or opportunities to look across different order to cash to revenue recognition. How am I optimizing that process, and how am I getting the right results? And you can build on that. So there are many different ways, and we talked about different industries. I think we all think about some pretty low-hanging fruit industries, but in this case, they go across domains, and it's that expertise of understanding how those industries work that's so important too. Finally, what was interesting in our talk is, somebody said, all right, this is great stuff. I love what you're talking about. I get it. I see how AI might apply to me, but why? What do I want to need a partner like Bramasol, Dave?
Well, thank you, John.
Yeah.
So absolutely, we're already leveraging the tools inside our business and for our customers. We're working through, this is a fast-moving space, so not just doing it on our own, but partnering with SAP and some others in the ecosystem and other creative thinkers. One great thing for Bramasol is we're right here in the Silicon Valley.
Right.
We're in the heart of a lot of AI. Customers we work with and partner with, other business partners, coming up with the ideas and solutions for exactly the kind of things we talked about here, helping companies have superior quote-to-cash processing and scenarios, as well as the ability to account and rev rec for it in particular,
Absolutely.
as well as the other issues in the finance line of business across industries like high tech and life sciences and biotech and things like that.
Absolutely, I agree 100%. I think what we find in talking with our customers, they come to us because of our expertise, and because we can add value and provide a perspective on the SAP portfolio and apply it to their problem. In the case of artificial intelligence, where they're looking for faster ways to market, how do I optimize my orders? What's the impacts of revenue recognition and combining those all together? How do I take industry-specific examples, and we can bring those, but our domain expertise gives us an ability to cross across that. And certainly because Bramasol has that co-innovation relationship with SAP, not all of this is done today. We're looking at opportunities to create go-to-market plans, quick partnerships, quick tools that we can use to get people up and running quickly. So, find yourself a partner like Bramasol. In our space, we believe that we're the preeminent partner for companies thinking about order-to-cash subscription models. Certainly, there are partners out there for supply chain, and you want to find the right partner for the right solution. Perfect. So I want to thank everybody. Dave, I want to thank you. I know you and I had a great time in Insider, you and I presenting. We did about something similar, about 30, 40 minutes of a presentation. It was a great opportunity. I want to thank you for the opportunity to have you here in the office and for you and I to do this. Any parting words that you want to say to anybody?
Yeah, what I think anybody's interested in is, well, how do we make this tangible and practical? And that's, it's the job of Bramasol and SAP and the partner ecosystem. That's what we're working towards, in the quote to cash and compliance areas. Is here are practical, tangible things that we offer that you can consume that will improve, the ability of a client, a customer to run their operations, reconcile them, interpret them, and benefit from it.
Absolutely. And you mentioned earlier, it's everything's available in the cloud, whether it's a public cloud. So a lot of the solutions are public cloud ready, and they can be up and running very, very quickly. And there are, for things like entitlements or subscription management, other tools are available through the private cloud, and all of them integrate well. So again, artificial intelligence and having that link, I think, is super powerful. So thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We hope you found this interesting. We wanted to give a little bit of a different perspective and start the talk about AI and start it in a way that was more tying into order to cash and revenue recognition and start the process of making it relevant. We'll be doing some more webinars in the near future talking about how to take this to the next level with the SAP development teams, with other folks from the outside. We'll help understand why other tools are really important to this process. Data tools and data mediation tools are important to help you speak the language. So we're looking forward to speaking with all of you in the future. Thank you all for joining us. Again, check out all of our great content on YouTube. I think you'll find a lot more there. So thank you all and have a great day.